And welcome to Unit 10, Module 56. We're talking about psychodynamic theories. Here are your learning objectives, and here are your vocab. So, psychodynamic theories are, this is a perspective that followed Freud. So, Freud was psychoanalysis, that's what he created, and the psychodynamic theorists are going to be followers of him, but the modern day perspective. So not exactly the same. So Neo-Freudians were his followers, and they accepted his basic ideas. They accepted his personality theory of id, ego, superego. They agreed with the significance of the unconscious and the dynamics of defense mechanisms and the importance of childhood development. But what they did not agree with was the idea that it was just all the unconscious and the conscious wasn't really knowing what's going on. They placed more emphasis on the conscious mind's role in interpreting experiences than did Freud. And again, they removed that sex and aggressive stuff. They didn't think that everything went back to sex and aggression as he did. So there are three Neo-Freudians you need to know. The first one is Alfred Adler. And he proposed the inferiority complex, the feeling that one is not as good as other people. And he was very sickly and ill often during his childhood. And he believed that it was in childhood that we would develop these feelings of incompetence, that in adulthood we would just strive to demonstrate our competence in that way. So that's the inferiority complex. Karen Horney is the second one. And she said that childhood anxiety triggered this need for love and security. And so that was what drove behaviors. She disagreed with Freud's view that women have weak superegos and that they also had penis envy. Remember that he was very much of the Victorian time period, and women were very suppressed during this time. And she countered with, women don't have penis envy, men actually have womb envy. Because it's clear through society that women are so disparaged by society and by men that clearly men feel threatened by us. And that's because that we have the power to create because of our womb. So men have womb envy. And the last one is the most important, Carl Jung. And he differed from the others in saying that we don't just have this unconscious that drives us, we have a collective unconscious. And this collective unconscious is shared by our whole species, and it is a reservoir of shared images. These images are archetypes. And he said, no matter what culture you go through, you can find these archetypes in their culture, in their myths, in their traditions. For example, like the idea of a creator. The idea of a ruler, things like that. How are personalities assessed in the psychodynamic perspective? It's through what's called projective tests. So they would show them an image, and the patient would have to tell a story about the image. And the idea is to look for trends and find that unconscious theme. The first one you need to know, there are two. The first one you need to know is the thematic apperception test. And these would look like these images here. And you get a series of these and you tell a story. And they're looking again for a common theme. Maybe the theme is trust. So maybe there are some unconscious issues with trusting others. The other one you need to know is the Rorschach Inkblot Test, which I'm sure you have seen before in AP Psych. And this was the most widely used, where they had ink blots to have people identify their inner feelings by analyzing and interpreting these images. So these are not found to be reliable, and also they are not valid. Sometimes have been used in the past for like criminal psychology to kind of determine like certain ideas about the person, but these are not used. So the modern psych view of the unconscious is that Freud was right. We do have limited access to this unconscious. It's not exactly the way Freud described, but of course he didn't have the same technology we do. So ideas of like self-concept and stereotypes, schemas, priming, all of those things that we wouldn't consciously think about, but are clearly affecting the way we behave and the way we think and feel. He also used what's called projection, and modern-day psychologists would call this the false consensus effect. And this is just the tendency to overestimate the extent to which others share our beliefs. So if someone cheats on their girlfriend, they think that everyone must cheat on their girlfriend. And last is terror management theory. So Freud said that we have this unconscious defense to protect us against our anxiety. And terror management theory actually agrees with that, and it's specifically related to death. So death-related anxiety, thinking about our mortality, leads us to do things that are defensive, to bring down that fear of our mortality. For example, if we're faced with our mortality, we might become more spiritual. We might become more focused on helping the world be a better place, or focusing on loved ones, things to reduce our anxiety. So our takeaways: Freud's idea of the unconscious is still widely accepted today. Neo-Freudians were the followers of Freud, and they agreed that childhood was an important part of development of personality, but did not agree with his sexual theories. When you think Horney, you want to think social anxieties drive behaviors. Adler, you want to think the inferiority complex. Jung, the collective unconscious. And projective tests are not considered to be reliable or valid today, but you do need to know them: Rorschach and the TAT test. So that wraps up Module 56, and I will see you in class.